the NITRO Warriors, the top guns of the quarter mile.
When I heard those nitros fire up, man, my whole body trembled, man. I feel something that I ain't never felt before. Powerful, man. Powerful. Real powerful.
Now, is there a better way to describe nitro racing? Hello, everyone. I'm Big Daddy Don Garland.
And I'm Kenny Youngblood.
And welcome to the Museum of Drag Racing.
We're here to bring you the very best in drag racing entertainment.
And this episode of Nitro Warriors is called Nitro Warriors.
Today's show is significant because it was made for TV, but it's never been aired. So you're going to see some action like we've never seen before. And of course, the unique thing about this show is that it had some real innovations.
There were a lot of firsts done here in the taping of this show that is standard procedure now, and I'm sure that those things were taken when they saw this footage. Things like interviews with the crew chief, special camera angles, live trackside announcing.
Well, the '88 Super Bowl of drag racing in Phoenix was the warm-up to the Winter Nationals. So all the big guns were there getting their stuff together, and you were there with John Lundberg.
Certainly was. I was live trackside. It was really an exciting race. And of course, they were using this event to tune up for the upcoming Winter Nationals. This is the last chance to test new parts before going into the championship chase.
Right, and get a little psychological edge, too.
You bet. And there were some good running cars, and all the big stars were there.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. For main event video, this is John Lundberg, and we're at Firebird Raceway in Phoenix, Arizona for the 5th annual Super Bowl of drag racing. And this 1988 Sunday in late January has seen many interesting innovations introduced to the sport. A particularly fun weekend for me as a long-term drag racing enthusiast, as I've had the opportunity to spend this weekend in the pits with this man, multi-time world champion and legend of our sport, Big Daddy Don Garlitz. Well done. The Super Bowl of drag racing has become sort of a first event of the year for many new innovations in the sport. What do you see as the leading innovation here this weekend?
Well, John, I think the leading thing that we've seen this weekend is the multi-stage clutch, especially the 4-speed introduced by Austin Coyle on John Force's car. There's some other innovations back there, but this one stands head and shoulders above everything else because they have generated a 5.34 ET, and I think this is a sign of things to come in 1988. So watch out back there in the pits, funny cars, and the guys that's got the 6-finger clutches and 9-finger clutches are in big trouble.
The result is the #1 qualifying position in this field at 5:34.6 as Austin Coyle prepares John Force for his first round pass here, and they'll be running against a brand new Hawaiian Punch Dodge Daytona of Roland Leong and Johnny West. Number 5 qualifiers here, half a second back at 5:82.5 and 247 miles per hour. John Force, burnout. Coming up into the bleach box now, the brand new Hawaiian Punch Dodge Daytona of Roland Leong.
I'd like to add also that Austin Coyle is a very similar type personality to Dale Armstrong. He never stopped thinking. There's a lot of other little tricky things on that car, John, such in the fuel system that nobody knows about, that Austin Coyle is constantly working on and developing. And the difference between the Austin Coyle Force team And the Bernstein-Armstrong deal is Armstrong and Bernstein, they sell their stuff, and Coyle doesn't sell anything.
Keeps his secret to himself. And that's the burnout. The car doesn't sound any differently, but at the beginning of the 1987 season, John Ford 5 supercharger combinations in a row due to crossfire between the two magnetos on the vehicle. So they started with one magneto. After their burnout, they pull it back to the starting line, put the body up. Austin Coyle clicks on the second magneto, and these guys are ready to drag race. They roll in to move. Remember, once the second light is on 7.5 inches away from a red light, and you're controlling a 4,000 horsepower car.
Look at that force go. 540.
He's gone 268.65 miles per hour, and the Roland Leong team cards a 593, 243.24 miles per hour, and John Force, Don Garlitz, has just established the reality of that 5:34 elapsed time.
Yes, exactly. And did you notice, John, when the two cars went down the race tour, it was no question. We didn't even need wind lights to tell who was winning the race. There is so much difference between a 540 and a 590 that anybody here knows who's winning well before they ever get to the end. Okay, on the starting line, we have Don the Snake Perdome. Don was out a whole year, you know, as he kind of laid off and just kind of took it easy. Came back last year, did real well. The old Snake is back.
His competitor, the number 8 qualifier, Ron Sutherland's brand new Desert Red, a vehicle so new that it hasn't even been painted yet, a 1988 Chevrolet Corvette. Now, it's a 7:99 qualifying time for Chris Lane, the driver of the Desert Red, with Perdome in the field number 4 qualifier at 5:62. So there's virtually no contest here. The Snake just running against himself.
Yeah, well, he's still got to get by this round to get into the semifinals. And believe me, you can smoke your tires. Anything can go wrong. You can break a rear. You can do anything. The Desert Red could win the race, but it's not fun.
Okay, there's the burnout by the Desert Red with Chris Lane up, and here comes Don the Snake Perdome. They say the old fire dogs respond when the bell clangs at the fire hall. If anything would rise out of a sickbed, an old drag racer, it's a smell that's happening right now, and the incredible sound of Fuel 20 cars and nitromethane and tire smoke.
Yeah, that's what put the people in the stand. They love that nitro smell. They love that popping in the pipes. This is a sport that is unequaled by anything in the world. No question about it.
First heat, first round, 20-car eliminator to Super Bowl of drag racing as Don the Snake Perdome kicks off his 1988 drag racing season right before your eyes. The winner, Don the Snake Perdome, 5.69 seconds, 257.14. And runner-up, Ron Sutherland's car with Chris Lane up 573, 221.13.
Well, Big, of all the funny cars here in the museum, there's one that won more than anybody else.
Yeah, that's that Army car of Don Perdome's, and we're really lucky to have that, you know. I caught Don in a weak moment and bought that from him.
Why do you think that car ran so much better than everybody else back then?
Well, I kind of think the crew chief probably had something to do with that. Wasn't that Bob Brandt that was on that car? And he was one sharp cookie. They were the first ones that really got onto the really rich condition when the car was idling. Because I noticed when he was running a night match race, there were no flames coming out of the pipes when it was backing up and getting ready to go to the line. Everybody else had these little blue flames. Well, they were rich, and they didn't even realize this was what the problem was. The other guys were too lean, and Perdome had his real rich.
Oh yeah, and that thing dominated the class. No, virtually unbeatable. Now, Big, did you think when Force ran that 34 that they'd be running almost a half second quicker today?
Certainly didn't. I know we thought when he did that, that was about the end of the line for the funny cars because of the bodies and everything. Little did we know they had a lot left in them.
And coming up the stage, it's going to be Ron Fossil driving the Phoenix Dodge Fuel Funny Car, and they're going to be racing former Funny Car world champion Ed McCullough, number 2 qualifier here at 5:56.6, 261.62 in the Miller High Life Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme. Okay, burnout time for McCullough. And Andy Ace annihilates the tires coming out. Coming up very soon will be Chris Lane. As the Phoenix race car does its burnout, we'd like to mention in passing, by the way, that the Miller High Life team have all brand new paint schemes executed by Kenny Youngblood. And Don, of course, the graphic presentation of the vehicle to the spectator is a very important factor in drag racing just now with major sponsorships, isn't it?
Well, I like the new paint scheme on the Miller cars because it is more like the actual product they're advertising.
All right, backing it right in front of us now, Ron Fossil driving the Phoenix, a 1988 Dodge Aries against the Cutlass Supreme of Ed McCullough.
In the funny cars, the dry burnout is a lot more important than in a top fuel dragster. For some reason, the funny car, because of the short wheelbase, needs that extra clutch heat and needs those tires as sticky as possible so that they get traction leaving the line. Whereas a fuel dragster with a long wheelbase doesn't need quite such a sticky tire.
Recent indications are from timing on drag strips throughout the country that a funny car will accelerate from 0 to 60 miles an hour in 1 second. Now they're ready to go. Ron Fossil in the right lane. In the left lane, Ed McCullough ready to accelerate down the quarter mile. McCullough looking to go for a major win here. 5:30, the number to beat. Can he bring it on?
Ed McCullough out to an early lead. 5:60 for Ed McCullough, the winner.
The speed for Ed McCullough is 260.86 miles per hour. Runner-up Fossil and Baroni's car through the quarter mile at 6:55, 180 miles per hour. Well, ladies and gentlemen, coming to the starting line now is probably the most storied funny car team at this point in the history of the sport. Double-A Dale Armstrong, former alcohol dragster world champion, and his legendary driver Kenny Bernstein and their fruitful combination, the 1988 Budweiser King Buick Riata. They are in this field as the number 3 qualifiers at 5:57.7, and against them, of course, the legendary fireman from Southern California, Jim Dunn, and the Fireman's Quickie.
Yes, Dale Armstrong, you know, has really done some wonderful things in drag racing. The multi-speed clutch, multi-engagement clutch, whatever you'd like to call it, is Armstrong's invention. He was the very first one to have it. The carbon fiber bodies, that's Armstrong's work. Now they're talking about variable blower drive, more of the genius of Armstrong again. In fact, in that car, they even have automatic devices. They have automatic devices for shifting the transmission, leaning out the motor, shifting the clutch. Everything is controlled automatically. More of the Armstrong genius.
Well, there it is. Pilot perhaps more of a space capsule than a funny car. Kenny Bernstein is backed into stage the Budweiser King 1988 Buick Riata. Now, something our spectators should notice at this point, Don, is that for the National Hot Rod Association has demanded that instead of the Batmobile-style funny car bodies we saw in 1987, that these vehicles must resemble the vehicles that the fiberglass and Kevlar bodies have been copied from.
That's exactly right, and I can understand that because if you're claiming to have a Buick, you better look like a Buick. Or if you got a Ford, you ought to look like a Ford. The fans expect you to, and I see no reason why they should be allowed to modify these cars beyond recognition.
There could be no additional comment at all about the fact that the cars won't run as fast because Force 534 puts that argument right on the trailer.
Exactly right.
Here we go. Jim Dunn has shut off his car. Bernstein through the quarter mile at 5:53 on virtually a lone win with a trap speed of 257.14. On a shutoff run, Jim Dunn dejectedly through the end of the quarter mile with a fireman's quickie at 10:14, 89.19 miles per hour. Well done. You may not have the exact number in your mind, but can you kind of peel off for us what incredible number of functions that Dale Armstrong monitors on that car as it goes down the quarter mile on each pass?
I can tell you exactly. He's monitoring 24 functions on that particular computer. The one that I had in my car at the end was 20 functions. A lot of guys are 15, 16 functions, but Armstrong's is 24 functions. So he gets a tremendous amount of data back at the end of the run, which he is able to correlate then and consume and make the car go faster for the next run.
Okay, at the end of first round of Funny Car Eliminator, we've had two 560s, a 550, and a 540 by John Force, who still, at the end of the first round of Funny Car Eliminator, has a tenth of a second on the entire program of Fuel Funny Cars.
Big, there's another story that I heard you tell at Cordova last year that I'd never heard before. It was incredible about rain coming down on your side of the lane and not on the other guy, on the opponents. What happened that day?
That was Muncie, Indiana. It was a match race in like August before the Nationals against Tommy Ivo, and it was like a Saturday night match race. And we, you know, in those days you push down on the track and fire it up, and you come down the track, and then you swap lanes in the back. And as they turned in the back and I started moving up to the line, there was a sprinkle coming on my goggles.
You figured they'd call a race.
And I didn't want to go up the line, and the starters motioned me up, and I see Ivo up on the starting line, and I'm waving my hands. No, now it's raining even harder, and I won't go to the line. And so they just sent Ivo on a single. And I watch Ivo just go out there just as nice as you please, set a good ET. I'm getting out of the car. I want to know what's going on. And it was raining on my side of the drag strip, and on Ivo's side it was dry as powder.
Boy. Ready for some semifinal action, Big?
You bet. Let's go.
All right, firing up behind us. Second round, Funny Car Eliminator. Big Daddy, this is Don the Snake Prudhomme against Ed the Ace McCullough.
Very good race, because Prudhomme had a 569 and McCullough had a 560. So with the lane choice, you see McCullough has opted to take the left lane. But as we saw in that first round, Gene Snow went 528 over here in the right lane against the 33 for Amato in the left. So it could be there's no difference in the lanes.
Well, we'll have a further indication right now as forward comes the beautifully new painted Miller High Life Oldsmobile. McCullough laying down his traction path, and now Don the Snake Prudhomme with his 1987 car, the Skull Bandit Pontiac Trans Am. How much of a measure of a car's ability to perform in this instance does the burnout give us, Don?
In the funny car, it's a lot more critical than the fuel dragster for the simple reason they got to have the tires hotter and the clutch hotter, or they could well spin the tires, because with a short wheelbase, the engine has put a lot of weight on the front wheels, not near as much on the rear wheels as a top fuel dragster.
As they back in front of us, Don the Snake Prudhomme, three-time former NHRA World Champion, and Ed the Ace McCullough, a previous champion in funny cars as well. Now, ready to race each other. And as Big Daddy Don Garlitz told you, they're just 0.09 of a second apart based on first round winning. That's the Snake. Let's see how well McCullough does. Well, we saw quite a burst of very dark clutch dust coming out of the back of McCullough's vehicle on that dry hop, Don. Is that the purpose of the dry hop? Clean the tires and warm the clutch up?
Yes, it is. And that dust tells you just how loose that clutch might be. And obviously they're running it loose to keep from having those tires spin.
They're in the race, ladies and gentlemen, at 9/100ths of a second apart. Two seasoned veterans of the quarter-mile sport. Now, it should be mentioned here that Don the Snake Prudhomme is racing with last year's combination. He will not debut his new vehicle until the next major event. Ed McCullough rolling into stage. Bernie Federley has that car ready to go. And let's see who goes into the final round of 20-car eliminator here at Firebird Raceway. Tires in mid-course. McCullough on a beautiful run goes 573. Speed at the quarter mile 255.68. Smoking the tires in the right lane 838 at only 104 miles per hour for Don the Snake Prudhomme.
Bernie, at the risk of being redundant for all the people who've gone to drag races thousands of times, kind of give us a little breakdown of what happens before you take this car to the line for the next run. Now, you've obviously come to the racetrack with a brand new engine. You're ready to go. You make one run. What do you have to do before you can run again?
Well, the first thing we do is we pull back into the pits. The guys, we pull the spark plugs out, drop lubricants, evaluate the condition of the motor. While they're doing that, I'm usually taking a tape off the computer and trying to analyze the performance of the run. At that point, Ed and I will usually discuss the performance of the car. Then we'll perhaps discuss it with the other crew members to get some more input. We evaluate that previous performance. Ed and I will generally start working towards improving the performance for the next run.
Boy, it's great to see Bernstein and Prudhomme in the funny cars.
Yep, they had one more year in those funnies before they switched to Top Fuel. You said that Bob, you and Brooks worked this clutch out, and he sells it as a 3-stage, and you use it as a 4-stage. Could you elaborate a little bit more on that for us? And also about, does John actually have to shift this thing 4 times, or is this some kind of an automatic device?
Well, this thing is, well, starting from scratch, what we have is a 12-lever pressure plate, and it's set up to where the car leaves the starting line on 6 clutch fingers, and then an additional 3 come in not too far down the racetrack. And then further on down the racetrack, you can bring in 3 more levers, and that's how it's run as a 3-stage. As a 4-stage, I have added some additional pressure controls on the clutch that enable you to partially bring in some of the levers at a selected time, and the whole system is run by a series of electric timers. I mean, my God, if the driver was doing this, it'd be like playing the piano on the way down the racetrack.
So once, of course, the driver has nothing to do with what this clutch does.
No, he just drives the car.
You determine this.
It's
where
all
you set the
automatic.
timer, so you can actually change it prior to the run, obviously not during the run, but prior to the run, you can change the timing if you like to bring the levers in differently.
That's correct.
That really, then you can read your computer tapes and tell if you're getting more slippage in one spot or not, and you can adjust accordingly.
That's how it works.
That's perfect. You got a handle on that clutch.
Last year, here in January 1987, John Force won this race over the supposed unconquerable air tunnel-tuned Buick of Kenny Bernstein. This year, Austin Coyle has produced an incredible combination that saw a late afternoon blast yesterday here of 5.34 seconds, the quickest funny car run ever in the history of this sport. Don, what has Austin Coyle done to that car?
He has developed a 4-speed clutch, an unbelievable deal. You know, we had 1 speed, and then last year we had 2 speed, and at the end of the year we had 3 speed. Well, Austin has got a 4-speed clutch. That means they have taken total control of the clutch engagement on this car.
Austin's checking the tire pressure before the race. John's taking a look at everything else before the second round. Force is strapped in the cockpit. That's crewman John Harmson giving him the victory sign.
Here we go. The cars are started. Fastest man in a funny car in drag racing on this weekend at 5.346 seconds. And here comes Kenny Bernstein in the Budweiser King.
And what we have here is a battle of the crew chiefs. We have Armstrong over here in the right lane, Austin Coyle in the left lane. I would say probably 2 of the smartest men in drag racing because of the innovations that they keep coming up with. They're literally running these cars from the back in the pit. The timers are shifting the transmissions, leading out the motors, shifting the clutches. It's an incredible technological thing that's happening here in drag racing.
They back into stage for the dry hop. Force at 540. Bernstein at 553, a 1300ths of a second elapsed time differential. All right, let's watch the dry hop. Now, the interesting part about this race is that last year, this was the final round of Funny Car Eliminator, and Force won the day. Now, Bernstein may have difficulty putting his reverser in. Obviously, the car is running, and the crew is out there trying to find out what's going on, Don.
And the body goes up. That's a real bad sign. Now, Austin Coyle brings the body up to put the other mag on. But in this case, he may have a problem down here. So we'll soon find out. Obviously, no reverse. They're pushing it backwards. I think the car is still running. They're backing him up. The reverser has obviously went out of Bernstein's car, and the crew has physically pushed this 2,000-pound monster back to the starting line. That just goes to show you how hard they want to race.
All right, when automation fails, you muscle it back to the starting line. One end up, tires smoking, Bernstein out, Force goes, 541. 541 for John Force at 267.85, and perhaps the world's most thoroughly prepared race car is out of horsepower.
Well, it's always good when you can win, and this day's happening. I don't know why it's happening, but a lot of work's gone in here for my team, and Austin Coyle especially in the last 3 months, and they've given me a car. It's like driving an automatic. Maybe I got me a race car like Bernstein has, and now we can race with him.
There's a little disagreement on the starting line. I guess Bernstein's reverser broke and they pushed it back. You waited for him.
No, they wanted us to single because Bernstein was still sitting out there when I was staging, and no, we just waited a long time here to get a shot at him, and I was going to give him a little more time. So you figure you can outrun him. We're all trying to check our stuff out, and I wanted to race.
A lot of time elapsed, though, and those tires were allowed to cool down way too much. Consequently, there they were with smoke off the tires just off the starting line.
Hot engine, cool tires ends the second round of Funny Car Eliminator.
Now, Big, you know, Force could have gone ahead and made a single there against Bernstein, but he didn't.
No, I have a lot of admiration for him. Shows the mark of a true champion when he'll wait and go for a real run and not just a single.
Plus taking a chance on building too much heat in the engine, either hurting it or smoking the tires.
Yeah, they wouldn't get away with that today, you know. They run them a little closer than that. But in those days, you had a little bit of leeway.
Well, you know, Big, that really shows a lot of character, doesn't it? And the other guy that comes to mind over the years of drag racing is the Goose. Tom McEwen has really been a class act, hasn't he?
Yes, he has. He's a true sportsman, and he's done the same thing that you just saw Force do a lot of times. And he'd loan you parts, loan you tires. I remember the U.S. Nationals when he had a lot of pressure. His son died from leukemia, and he won that race. And I'll tell you, it brought the entire house down in tears.
As usual, the Goose kept his calm, and he was very moved to tears, but really a class act. I've had the fortunate pleasure working with him over the years, and he's always a lot of fun and a great guy.
That 57 Chevy he built, was that just for show to have a small block Chevy in it?
Oh, no. That was his regular funny car chassis with a fuel Chrysler in it. And although he didn't want to run it too hard and just do some exhibition runs, the drag racer came out in him there after a while, and he got after it. They ran a 560 with that car. It was a serious piece.
560?
Oh, yeah. And that's pushing a lot of wind in that big shoebox, you know. But that goes along with his sense of marketing, because he was really ahead of his time, felt this nostalgia thing coming on, and put together really the first nostalgia-type funny car.
Where's that car today?
It ain't at Perdone's.
In racing, I've learned over the years, if it's your day, nobody can beat you, and it doesn't matter whether you run good or run bad. You know, Mother Drag Racing will help you or she won't.
This is it. The Nitro Warriors in final round competition. It's Funny Car Eliminator Final at the Super Bowl of Drag Racing. In the left lane, with a 5:34, quickest run in funny car history to his credit, the Austin Castro GTX Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme, wrenched by Austin Coyle and driven by John Force. In the right lane, some 32 hundredths of a second slower, it is the thundering machine of Ed McCullough. Bodies are down. Now it's time to create that hot, wide, flat, hot traction pad. Tire smoke at the Super Bowl. The handle, 12 miles per hour and 32 hundredths of a second. And we'll know who did it well and who did it best in just a few moments. Now that the tire smoke is blown out of the cockpit, the hatches are down. Austin Coyle turns on John Force's second magneto, and they now prepare for the dry hop. Up they come. Good response from both cars, Don. Now it's the last backup. For the last time, the driver looks at everything. A pair of Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme, one sponsored by Miller High Life, the other by Castro GTX. From the high desert country of Hemet, California, Ed McCullough. From Southern California, John the Brute Force, who in 1987 won his first major NHRA funny car drag race with Austin Coyle wrenching, hoping to have a real shot at the Funny Car World Championship in 1988. And of course, Bernie Federle, now looking through the cockpit window at Ed McCullough, has the same thought in his heart here in the final round of Funny Car Eliminator. And now, ladies and gentlemen, time to drag race. No prisoners. It's time now to move forward to each stage. 7.5 inches away from the red light. celebration from McCullough's car. John Force wins. 5:47 for Force, 2:67.06. 5:73 for Ed McCullough. You could just feel the vibration as McCullough's car traveled past us here on the podium. The runner-up speed for Ed McCullough, 204.08. Don, your final thoughts on Funny Car Eliminator.
Well, here's the situation where you can see the crew did everything they possibly could do and only duplicated the run before the 573. I'm sure both teams would have loved to have stepped up, but in this case, they did not. Force is a winner, and you can bet the crew is plenty happy about it.
Behind us is the pink Top Fuel dragster of the one and only Shirley Muldowney. And Big, you and Shirley really played quite a role together in the history of drag racing.
Well, we had a lot of races, both in match races and actual real competition. She was fierce.
But was the competition as tough back then with her as ever?
Well, I could say it wasn't, but actually I think it was just as tough back in those days because we had a lot less to do with and a lot less people to do it. So I think it was just as hard to race in as it is now.
And who was really putting the most notches on the gun?
I'm not going to make a statement because I don't want to start any ephus, but let's just say it was pretty even up.
Oh, good. Let's go to a race where Shirley competed, and that, of course, was the '89 Super Bowl of drag racing. Not only Shirley, but some other stars that we don't see anymore, like Earl Whiting out of the Northwest. And, of course, back then, Gary Ormsby really had a stranglehold on Top Fuel.
Oh, he was tough. His passing was a real loss to the sport.
It was. Let's go to the first round of the Super Bowl of drag racing 1989.
You set? You guys set? Let's fire them up, guys!
That's the sound we've been waiting all winter for. A sound of a Top Fuel dragster coming to life. 4,000 horsepower, supercharged, fuel injected on nitromethane. And here we go with the first pair of Top Fuelers here at Firebird. In the right-hand lane out of Oregon, it's the longer turn drag racer. Here comes Earl Whiting. And his competition in the right-hand lane. The California-based Posey and Murdoch car with Robert Reel at the throttle. Two of the best Top Fuel dragsters in the country right now, getting ready to do battle here at Firebird. This is the first race of the season, their first chance to try out everything they've learned all winter. The crew chief's busy checking over everything as they back up towards the starting line. The track is in excellent shape here today at Firebird. These drivers are looking for some big numbers and some quick speeds. The sounds of these engines is deafening. It's unbelievable how loud they are. And the air's starting to fill with the fumes of nitromethane. Side-by-side start immediately. Reel goes up in smoke and Whiting streaks to a win. A 5:25 elapsed time, and the crew is going to be happy about that one. Out of Mount Clemens, Michigan, the first lady of drag racing, Shirley Muldowney. She'll be taking on one of the quickest men in the sport, the go-man himself, Mr. Gary Ormsby. As Shirley suffered a horrific crash in 1985, people told her she'd never drive again, but look at her, she's out here today at Firebird. Ormsby, a very successful car dealer from Roseville, California, loves to be a full-time drag racer, and he's out each and every week with his Castrol car. racer. She's a legend in the sport of drag racing. She eats, lives, and sleeps drag racing. She even married her crew chief, Ron Tolber, who has worked with her for many, many years, and Shirley got married last year, and it's a marriage made in heaven. These guys work together real well, and the hot pink car is ready for an assault on the 1989 season. At a 5.08, 278 miles per hour, a great pass. Next up, it's the Professor Frank Hawley, owner and proprietor of the drag racing school, now driving for Larry Minor. He'll be taking on Jolton Joe Amato, defending world champion in his TRW car. Cars backing up now towards the starting line. Amato's the guy that everybody's going to be taking a shot at this season. He's the defending world champion, and he wants to regain that crown. Now, Hawley's the professor, and a lot of his students are out there watching him, and he can't screw up. But Amato looks like he's going to teach the professor a lesson. He does a 5:15 elapsed time, takes the win. That's it for the first round at Top Fuel. Second round of Top Fuel, and what a race we're going to have here. It's like the instant replay of last year's final round. These two guys met last year, Dick LaHaye and Joe Amato. Amato was the loser that time, and he's got revenge in his eyes this year. And we're getting ready for second round action. Kim runs towards the starting line to meet her dad as Amato watches the general's left hand for the burnout signal. Tom Cattleman lines up Dick LaHaye on the starting line as Amato pulls into stage. Two world champions, one of the most intense rivalries in Top Fuel racing going on right here. Both drivers have the same goal, a win here and a shot at the final round. A whole shot for Amato, it looks like he's going to smoke him. And he does with a 5.09. Ormsby's crew chief Lee Beard checks the track. They've got lane choice, they pick the right lane as Earl Whiting looks down track. Ormsby is deadly serious about winning the 1989 World Championship. He's planning an all-out assault on it, and he's putting it all in the hands of this man, Lee Beard, an 18-year veteran of fuel racing. Smoke, smoke, and more smoke. The burnout designed to heat up those rear tires for more traction. Tim Farrell, Whiting's crew chief, goes out to meet him and guide him back towards the starting line as Gary Ormsby brings the Castrol GTX Streamliner back towards the starting line. Whiting's crew calls over Bob Brooks of AFD Clutches to take a look at their car. Takes one final last look at the starting line as he lines up Ormsby, and Whiting's crew gets the okay from Brooks. Ormsby gets the whole shot, and it's Ormsby all the way. He's going to and he gets the win with a 5:13.
Gary Ormsby was really at the top of his game then, wasn't he? And the man to beat in Top Fuel.
Yes, he was. He was the baddest of the bad. And then one other little thing that a lot of people don't know, Gary Ormsby was suffering from terminal cancer. So he was giving it his best shot. He wanted every day to be the best day of his life. And it showed in his racing.
It's like to be top fuel driver in NHRA. Just super competitive. That's ultimate in being competitive out there. And you really try just as hard as you can, and you know, you're hot and you're sweaty, and you get beat, and you blow your engine up, and you have a fire, you crash the car. There's a lot of depressing times, so it makes it, when you win a race, you really kind of got to remember that, because that's what takes you through these times when you crash your car and you wreck everything you own. Then it's back to the next race and back to blowing everything up. The cost involved with one of these things is tremendous. That's really the major drawback to trying to run one of these cars is, you know, phenomenal cost. You know, anywhere $500,000 to $1 million to run one of these cars for a year. Got to be smart. When it starts getting over your head, you shut it off. That's the biggest thing about driving one of these things, is knowing when to shut it off, because if you let it get away from you, you end up getting hurt.
Gary Ormsby's radical streamliner. It never really worked right, but Gary spent a lot of money on it, and it had a lot of really good ideas. I think one of the big things that was wrong with it, the carbon fiber was too close to the magnetos, and sometimes they would get a short circuit and get a backfire. But Gary worked real hard on it, and he was runner-up to me at the Baton Rouge race in Louisiana in 1986. It did run real good. It wasn't bad. It ran some good times. You know, it was a lot of trouble to fool with it, and the body coming off and everything between rounds. And so first thing you know, it was more trouble than it was worth. It wasn't efficient as a streamliner. It was a beautiful body, a lot of money was spent on it, and it was nice work. But it didn't do the job that it was supposed to do. The biggest thing it did was add weight to the car. It did not, he didn't do anything to the front of the car where the streamlining help was necessary.
There's quite a dichotomy of Shirley. I mean, on one hand, she's really a very feminine woman when you get to know her, and yet there's this gutsy daredevil side of her almost. Have you seen that?
Yes, I have. Shirley has the killer instinct, and that's what it takes to be a Top Fuel champion or any real racing champion. You got to have that inside feeling that it's kill or be killed. She got that world championship, and then she won it again. She had a really career going, and then a terrible thing happened to her in Canada.
Which would have put any normal woman out of business.
And I've always had the feeling that it's easier to do it than to hide from it.
Well, even the people, the sponsors, the tracks said Shirley will never race again. I had plenty of people that were her friends that said she would never race again. And she had such terrible injuries, who would not believe me?
Right, but that wasn't the case, was it? She came back.
I was just absolutely flabbergasted when she did come back, and she did well. I mean, right at first, you know, it's just going down the track to me was doing well, because I know what it was like when I got back in my car after I blew my foot off at Lyons. I mean, it really took something to pull those belts and tighten them down, because nobody had a gun to your head. Shirley had to do that, and she had to be thinking about that accident in Canada end over end over end.
It's the thing, that foot will never be right, you know.
What's it like when you're sitting in the...
I'm okay if I'm sitting down, but I can't spend any time on my feet. The most I do is I'll go to the mall for maybe an hour, or I'll grocery shop, but I can do no more than that. And the races doesn't bother me, because I sit in the truck a lot. I don't walk around the pits hardly ever. But
what about that
left foot is...
How about that killer instinct? Did you lose that for a little bit?
No, I want to win as bad as anyone else out here. And I don't know how they refer to it, but, you know, I'm pretty intense. And I want to win as bad as anyone else out here. I know what I'm doing in my car, and we really feel the nice car. Very safe, and you know, I've never had problems. And because I did have a problem, you gotta pick yourself up and brush yourself off and go on. I've never lost my confidence. I know that when I go to the starting line, my people have prepared my car to the best of their ability, and that's certainly good enough for me. luck, too, you know. You need that. A little bit of luck.
Well, Big, what's the one thing that you could tell people about your feelings toward Shirley Muldowney that nobody would really know?
Well, I think the one thing was that I was working on my car in Missouri when the word came over the radio. It broke in and said, we have a special announcement. Shirley Muldowney has just had a horrific accident in Canada and is in critical condition and on her way to the hospital. And I just kind of dropped to my knees and said a little prayer, because all of that years and years of animosity and everything just kind of faded away. And all I could think of was for Shirley to be okay and to be able to race again, because I knew that's what she wanted to do. And from my point, I was really sorry about all the nasty things that I had ever said about her all of those years, because funny how all of that just faded away when I got that terrible news. But the good news was she did recover and she did come back to race again.
We're ready for the Top Fuel final here at Firebird. The fastest accelerating vehicles in the world, about 300 inches long, made out of chrome moly tubing, covered with aluminum and magnesium body panels, a 4,000 horsepower supercharged, fuel-injected, nitro-burning racing engine for the power. These cars go 0 to 60 in less than a second. It's West versus East in the Top Fuel final in the left-hand lane out of California. Driving the Castrol GTX car, it's Gary Ormsby, the go-man. He'll be taking on defending world champion out of Old Forge, Pennsylvania, Joe Amato in the TRW Keystone Auto Parts Special. Now, both of these cars have run very, very well today. Amato was the #1 qualifier. Ormsby was right behind him. But in the game of drag racing, anything can happen, and it usually does. Okay, now the sun is starting to set. It's starting to go down. The air is getting cooler. What that means is that these cars are going to make a lot more horsepower. The cooler the air, the more horsepower these engines generate. And it's up to the crew chiefs to tune these engines for that condition. Now, one thing these crew members are going to look for are the header flames. At this time of day, you can see the actual fire coming out of those pipes, and they can see whether a cylinder's firing or not. That's a good indication on whether or not they're going to drop a cylinder. Amato takes one last look at Ormsby in the other lane as he brings his car to the starting line. This is a very important race for both of these guys. They want to get this title. Both in pre-stage. Now they're staged. Oh, great start by Ormsby. Boy, did he tree Amato. Jeez, all the way he takes it. A 5.16 to a quicker but losing 5.13 by Amato. Amato blew it on the starting line, and Gary Ormsby gets the first victory of the 1989 season.